Good day. I would like to welcome you from Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark, where the Council of Foreign Ministers of the European Union is held today. It is held here, not in Brussels or Luxembourg, because Denmark is now the Prime Minister of the European Union. As it is usually the case, the Council of Foreign Ministers is held in the capital of Denmark. This was an exception when they thought in Brussels that they would punish us by not bringing this meeting to Budapest. But we stayed there in Brussels, saying that we used the term ceasefire and peace talks too often, the terms that are used most often by those who decided not to come to Budapest. But it seems that we managed it, and we are still here. Today's Council of Foreign Ministers made it clear that a significant part of Brussels and the member states of the European Union are prepared to continue the war for a long time. The majority of Brussels and the member states of the European Union are not interested in the success of the peace process. The majority of Brussels and the member states of the European Union are ready to send another 10 billion euros from the money of the European people. That is many, many billions of forints to Ukraine, so that they can buy weapons from it and maintain the Ukrainian army from it. They want to spend 10 billion euros to pay for the Ukrainian soldiers, to buy drones for the Ukrainians, and to operate the Ukrainian state. Here in Copenhagen, it has been treated as a definition that Ukraine must be financially supported. Ukraine must be financed. Since there is no agreement on the cover of the Russian money, it is clear that Ukraine can demand financial support from the EU. Both of these are built on the money of the European people. The majority of Brussels and the member states of the European Union are prepared to continue the war for a long time. They are not interested in the success of the peace process. They are ready to send another 10 billion euros, that is many, many billions of forints, to Ukraine. They want Ukraine to buy weapons, to operate the Ukrainian army, and to operate the Ukrainian state. Today, there was a great pressure to allow Ukraine to enter the European Union on the accelerating path. There was a great pressure for the European Union to accept new sanctions, this time against Russia in the energy sector as well. There was a great pressure to pay out more than 6 billion euros, that is 2,400 billion forints, from the European Peace Fund for the armament of Ukraine. There was a great pressure to send more money and more weapons to Ukraine. The European Commission has practically risen up as a Ukrainian Commission today, representing the interests of Ukraine as a whole, as opposed to the interests of the member states of the European Union. Today, it has also become clear that in Brussels, the Carpathian-Hungarian community's fate is at stake. If the European Union really wanted to help, it would be able to settle the situation in 2015 with Ukraine. At that time, the Carpathian Hungarians still had full rights to use their mother tongue in education, culture, and public administration. But the European Union is putting Brussels above the Carpathian Hungarians, and it does not want to help. But it would be able to, because when Zelensky wrote the anti-corruption laws in Ukraine and ordered the anti-corruption organizations around him, the European Commission immediately stepped up and repealed this law with Zelensky. If they wanted, they could have repealed the laws that violate the rights of the Carpathian Hungarian community, but they do not want to. The European Commission has made it clear that there is a difference, because the anti-corruption laws are more important to them than the fate of the Hungarian minority. It has also become clear today that in Brussels, the Hungarian energy security is at stake. It is at stake that we are able to provide the Hungarian families and the Hungarian economy with adequate energy sources. It is also clear that they have not responded to the letter we wrote to the European Commission with the Slovaks. We asked the European Commission to at least comply with its own decision and to step up with the third country, namely Ukraine, which is endangering the energy security of the EU member states. Against this pressure, we will protect Hungary. We will protect the Hungarian economy. We will protect the Hungarian families. We will protect the Hungarian people from the effects of the war. What does this mean? It means four things. First, in contrast to the majority of EU member states and Brussels, we provide all support for President Donald Trump's peace talks. We do not support anything that criticizes or hinders Donald Trump and his peace talks. We are still convinced that only an American-Russian agreement can bring peace to Ukraine. Second, we will not allow Ukraine to be pushed into the European Union. This would destroy the Hungarian economy, destroy the Hungarian food security, and allow the Ukrainian mafia to enter Hungary. This would destroy our security. This is why we will not allow any part of the talks to be opened. Third, we will not allow the Hungarian people's money to be taken to Ukraine. We will not allow the Hungarian people's money to be used to arm and finance the Ukrainian army. This is why we will not support the use of more than 2.5 billion forints from the European taxpayers' money, from the European Peace Fund, for anything. And finally, fourth, we will not allow Brussels and Kiev to jeopardize Hungary's energy security. We will not allow the Hungarian people to be taxed. This is why we will not support the sanctions, which are directed against energy companies, which are important for the energy supply of Hungary. The debate was tough. The debate took place at a particularly high temperature. The pressure was particularly high, but we are opposed to the pressure, and specifically to the interests of the Hungarian people. We take the interests of Hungary into consideration and do everything we can to protect Hungary, the Hungarian families, the Hungarian economy, the Hungarian people from the war and its effects. This is how we can sum up today's debate. If there are any questions, I am happy to answer them.
Thank you, Zoltán Bugnyár Hírteve. One of my questions is that it is quite difficult to understand, as if there were 26 of you against us, what your experience has been in today's session, in several questions, for example, on the issue of energy security, whether you have supported the Friendship Oil leadership, whether there has been any change in this direction from your colleagues, and whether there has been any change in the position of the War and Peace Party. Not only Hungary, but also countries outside the Union and the United States are moving in the direction of peace. And when these peace efforts are taking place, for example, Trump is participating, while Ursula von der Leyen is visiting countries to continue the rhetoric of war. This is one of my questions. Mr. Tamper? The other question is that yesterday, following the meeting of the defense ministers, Kaja Kallas raised the question of why the European Commission did not step in under the pressure of the January commitment. Why the Friendship Oil leadership's support is the only reason for this. She answered that it is more important to cut the possibility of financing the war in Russia than the energy security of the EU member states, and how to evaluate this. And thirdly, the Minister of Defense said yesterday that Ukrainian arms manufacturers and that they have been invited here to manufacture weapons under safe conditions. And it was also mentioned again that in the event of a ceasefire, Ukrainian military trainees would be sent to Ukraine.
First of all, I would like to make it clear that the European Union has become isolated in world politics. It has become isolated mainly because of its war policy. It has become isolated mainly because of its war policy. This has been said more than once here today. Of course, it was not said like this, but it was said that we are fighting alone. We are fighting alone because the rest of the world does not help us at all. And we are fighting alone in this war against Russia. This is obviously outrageous because we are not fighting. I hope we will not. Ukraine is fighting. This is a Ukrainian-Russian war, and God forbid that Europe has to fight in this. From a political point of view, the European Union has become completely isolated in world politics. And it is also clear that there is no resistance towards Brussels. So if there is some kind of disagreement with the mainstream or a small criticism, it is immediately wiped out. Others are not as stable as we are. It is understandable why Brussels wants to wipe us out. Why do they want a BAP government in Budapest? Because if there is going to be a BAP government in Budapest, we do not have to involve them. Now, the question is why the European Commission does not step up against the Ukrainian attacks that threaten the Hungarian energy supply. The reason is that the European Commission is no longer the European Commission, but the Ukrainian Commission. The European Commission represents the interests of Ukraine, and Hungary does not want the European Commission to go to Ukraine, because this would be a red line crossing, which would mean a stronger and more physical involvement of Europe in the war. And we would like to prevent this from happening. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your attendance. I wish you all the best. I hope the storm is over, especially because we are slowly heading home. I wish you all the best.